All right, thanks everyone for joining today. We can start now. We've got a few more people who have joined us. Today's session will be the third in this series, and let's start. So before we go into the topics for today, let's just have a brief overview of the BricsCAD solution once again for your reference. So here will be just a general look into what we have in terms of BricsCAD products. And you'll notice on the left side are all the BricsCAD levels that you can get. So function-wise, they're all in DWG. And the important thing that we want to highlight over here is that all the functionalities of Light, which will be the 2D portion, are in Pro. And then all the functionalities of Pro will be on BIM. And everything else, BIM, Mechanical Pro, Light, will all be under Ultimate as well. So it's just a level of where the users can get all the functionalities depending on what they need. So what has to be done is just to unlock the level that's needed for the workflow that you have. So one thing to note is that everything that we are discussing in the Get Things Started series is applicable to any level of BricsCAD that you may have. All right, let's get into it. So we've previously talked about the BricsCAD advantage of being in DWG. And this is where all the information that you have from 2D drafting, 3D modeling, BIM, mechanical, civil, point cloud processing, and others is quite useful to have just one file format to manage all those things. And together with the DWG file format comes all your customizations. So previously, again, in previous sessions, we had discussed how you're able to migrate all these assets. We started with CUI, tool palettes, templates, and blocks. And then in the second session, we talked about plotters and page setups. We talked about sheet sets and list routines as well. So today, what we'll be discussing will be a few more things in the interface. So today we'll be talking about searchable settings, your options, and then we'll get into a bit of customizing the ribbon. And lastly, we'll just take a look at the content browser. So these three would be the main topics for today. So let's get into BricsCAD. All right, what you see here on my screen currently is just BricsCAD opened. So we did say that the very first thing that we'll be talking about will be the searchable settings. So before we get into that, let's just have a brief review of the overall interface of BricsCAD. So here we have on top is the ribbon, which you see I am in a dark mode, but my background is currently white, so we'll settle this in a bit. So the ribbon itself is black. We have here the tabs, home, insert, annotate, parametric, view, manage, output, etc. These will be some plugins that you will have, and then they'll just have their own tabs as well. The ribbon itself will have its own parts. So you'll have here your panel. So let's say this draw is a panel on its own, and then modify is a panel on its own as well. And within these panels, you will have your groups. So these will be groups. If you notice what I am pointing out here, we're under draw. And then you'll have flyouts. So flyouts, of course, will be the one that will be a sub part of your menu. So even your groups may have some flyouts as well, such as these. So we'll take a look at how we can deal with those later as well. So aside from the ribbon itself, you have, of course, your working space. You have on the rightmost side your panels. So these panels will, of course, be flying out. And then, for example, here we have properties. You can change all your information here. We have a few more like the attachments panel. We have the structure panel. We have our tool palettes panel, which we discussed previously, as mentioned. So these are just a few of the panels that will be useful for your workspace. And one of the other ones would be the connection to 247, if that's also something that you have in your workflow, where you can connect to the cloud and access all your drawings from here. Another one would be, of course, the command line, which will be here just below on the left side. This is quite familiar as well. And we have our model tab, we have our layout tabs, layout 1, layout 2, is very familiar, and all our other settings bar on the lower right side. So one of the things in the lower right side in the settings bar would be the current workspace. So currently we are on drafting, but if I right click over here, you'd see a few more options. So I can also change your drafting toolbars. So if I change that one, my UI will just change to something a bit more towards a UI with only toolbars over here, if this is something that we're more comfortable with. But let's say you have, let's go back to drafting. Let's say you have a very specific UI that you prefer. We have discussed how to migrate that over in previous sessions. However, beyond having your own UI that you want to migrate, what if you also want to customize your ribbon or your UI itself? So let's get into that portion. So first, let's discuss searchable settings and deal with this white background for now. So our searchable settings can be found under settings, of course, and that can be accessed through the command options. So just type in options, or you can also type in OP. So you will see here on the topmost, we have a searchable bar here. So the concept behind this is that normally when you need to change any of your settings, you will need to know exactly which part of your settings category that is under. So let's say here, it's the background of my workspace or my model space. So is it under my workspace? I don't know. Is it under display? I'm not sure, etc. So what we can do here is just search for something with a keyword. So maybe my keyword can just be background. And BricsCAD will be suggesting a few options for me. So everything that has something to do with the background. I can click on the down arrows or the up arrows until I get to a portion where I think that's the part that I'm looking for. So this is very useful, especially if you don't know exactly where to find that particular setting. So let's see over here. It seems to be this background color. So it's currently white. I'm going to change it to black. And just nice, it's the one that we were looking for. One of the things that you'll notice here is that we have something that's highlighted in blue, paper space background color. And you would also notice that the one that we changed to black has now also been highlighted in blue background color. So the reason why these are in blue is because that they have been changed. So one of the things and reasons why this is now in blue is that it's so that it's easier for you, either the users or the IT manager or CAD manager, to know exactly what is happening in the system. Perhaps there was some options or settings that were changed, and then the user is now having some issues. So the manager can easily pinpoint some of the things that were changed, and maybe it'll be easier to find what needs to be done or decide what needs to be either changed back to the original way it was set up, or revise it again to another color perhaps, or another setting or another setup. So it's not just the colors that we're looking at here. We also have other information such as, for example, let's click into files. So you will be able to search or set up where your file paths are, which folders they are received in. If you are having your texture map, let's see here, the path, where is BricsCAD getting the texture map information? So all these information will be found in the settings if you get into the options command. So that is the searchable settings that we have. Let us close this one. So now let's go into how we want to customize the ribbon. As we mentioned earlier, it might be something that you want to do to make sure that you're more productive, probably easier for you to find certain commands the way you want them, the way you want your UI to be set up so that you find certain commands in certain places. So how do we now go about that? You can right click into your ribbon and you will find here customize. So before we customize anything over here, let's take a look on this draw panel that we have, and let's click on line. So we mentioned earlier, we have this tab, we have this certain panel draw, we have the group and the button. So this is button now, and we have a flyout. Our flyout itself has four commands over here: line, multi-line, ray, construction line. So let's say we want to add one more command here later on. So just take a note of this. So now let's right click and customize. What we'll get into is our customize dialog. So we have a few options here, the tabs. So we have menus, toolbars, ribbon, keyboard, mouse, tab, quad, properties, etc. So the others are also something that you can customize later on. But for now, let's focus on the ribbon. So I'm just clicking on the ribbon over here. And one of the things that you'll find will be ribbon tabs. So let me close this one. So ribbon tabs, ribbon panels, and other menus over here. So we'll focus on ribbon tabs and panels for today. Ribbon tabs, I'll just expand this. Once I expand this out, I will find all these options. So all these other options or buttons over here pertain to something in our ribbon itself. So all these are the tabs. So for example, we are under home tab. So let's just check out 2D home. So I'll just expand this as well. We have draw, modify, annotations, layers, etc. So these, if you notice over here, we have draw, which is this certain panel. We have next will be modify, which is this one just beside that. And we have annotations, layers, blocks, properties, groups, utilities, and compare. So all these correspond to something in the customization setup. So earlier, what we mentioned was we wanted to add a specific command under line. So line is under draw. So we are under draw currently. And then what we can do is just to right click and then show the panel. So the panel itself will expand out all the information in this specific draw panel. So we have in our row, our line. So these are the ones that correspond to the ribbon again. So line, polyline, arc. Here we have circle. So let's concentrate on line. And then you'll notice that we have the same things that we saw earlier. We have line, multi-line, ray, construction line. And we did say that we wanted to add one more thing over here, which is sketch. So how can we do that? What we can do is just to line, right click, we can click on append command button, and we can also append a separator. So when you click on here, you will be given an option to choose which command or button you want. But perhaps an easier way would be, let's click on here to close that out. An easier way would be to go into the right side of this panel. You'd see over here, available tools. So available tools under BricsCAD. One of them will be pertaining to commands that are related to drawing, which is what we want. So let's try to find that constraints. Bin, that's not what we want currently. Compare, context. So here is draw. We find draw now, and we can expand this out. Once we expand this out, we can search for the specific command that we want to add. So let's say here we already have line. Maybe you want to add we already have ray. We want to maybe add a sketch. So what we can do is just to right click insert tool, or we can also just drag and drop it over to this side. So once you drag and drop that over, that's already going to be part of the setting of your ribbon panel. So another thing you can do is to make sure it's placed where you want it exactly. So you can just drag and drop it below, so that will reorder this command where you want it. So maybe we want it at the bottommost. So let's just drag it. So, yep. And then another thing was to right click and then maybe insert a separator. So this separator, maybe it's something that you want to do so that it's more organized in how you want your commands to appear or your tools to appear. So this is a separator. So what I want is for sketch to be separated, but construction line, I want it to still remain where it was previously. So let's just place it properly. Yep. So now I have line, multi-line, array, construction line, and I've added a separator, and then I've added sketch. So you can keep on adding other commands as you want, but let's just see what this does to our ribbon. So let's click OK, and then let's just wait for it to process the change. And once that's done, now we can go back to home, which is the tab that we are focused on. And then let's also go into draw, which is the panel, and then line. And then once we click the flyout, now we see that this is the exact way that we wanted it to appear based on the setting that we had in the customization dialog. So this is just a way to customize your ribbon. So how do you now delete something that you might not want to be there? So earlier we went to the customization by right-clicking and going to customize. But another way is just to type in CUI. So I'm just typing in CUI, and then I'm gonna be brought back to the same dialog. So again, we're under ribbon, and then let's just look for that 2D home that we were looking at earlier and draw. And then let's right click, show panel, and we're back into that panel. And maybe I don't want the separator, so I can just right click and delete this one. So let's, yes, delete that and click OK. So it will just process again and then make sure that our ribbon is now how we want it to be. So now the separator is gone, but sketch is still there. So this is a way for you to make sure that your UI is set up the way that you can be more productive. All right, so you can try it out on your own, adding in any of the tools or commands that you want in specific parts of your ribbon and ribbon tab, ribbon panel, etc. So after this, you can save it out as a profile, and then you can be sure that next time that when you get into the specific profile that you want, this setup will still remain. But we'll not get into that today. One of the other things that we have in terms of topic for today is the content browser. So what is a content browser? Content browser is actually one of the panels that we have. So earlier we took a look at the right side of our screen. We have the panels over here. Currently, we have properties, we have others such as layers. Of course, this is very important. We have attachments, structure, tool palettes, but we can't find the content browser for now. So what do we do? Let's just right click over here and we can find panels. And then you can find over here content browser. So once you activate that, on the left side, you will see your content browser. So one thing to note, the reason why it's on the left side is just the way it's set up currently on my BricsCAD. If you can see here, I'm on BricsCAD Lite. This is what I've activated. But if you are on higher level of BricsCAD, it may appear on a different side of your screen, but that doesn't matter. The functionality will be the same. And let's say I want to have all my panels here on my right side, I can just put it this way over here. So that is something that I can change also, so that I can have all my working space on my left side, something like that. So now that we have this content browser open, I currently have local folders, but I don't have anything listed down yet. I can now add a folder, and let's just take a look at the Getting Started series of folders. And you can find a specific folder that you want. But for now, let's just select this folder. So once I've selected this folder, it will bring that list of folders in my browser over here, my content browser. And what this does is that it makes it easier for me to reach for my drawings. So for example, here, I might want to get into one of the drawings that I have. So it's easier for me to open any of these drawings. So let's just see the others here. If you attended the previous two sessions, you would see that these are very familiar um, files that we have opened up in those sessions. So let's just take a look at what the drawings that we have over here. Maybe we have a tanks drawing. So one of the things that's very useful is that if I click here, I will see a preview, and it's easier for me to identify, is this the drawing that I want to open? So under here, I also see some other information. So let's say I want to open this tanks drawing, I can just double click over here, and I can now start working on this drawing. So if let's say I want to save something, it'll just be saved in the same folder path that I have over here. So this content browser makes it easier for you to manage your set of drawings. Let's say now you're done with changing anything here, you've saved it, and let's close that. Okay, let's close that first. And maybe the next day or 2 days after, you're working on a different project now. So of course, we all know that in terms of projects, you don't normally just work on one project. There are several projects going on. So you can set up your folders in a way that will be compatible to what you're doing for the day. So let's say this is not the folder that you want for today. You can just right click and remove it. And you can add a different project folder in your list for that day. Or for example, you just want everything there, then that's totally fine. Just add everything that you need. So that's basically the searchable settings. We talked about customizing the ribbon. So I hope that's something that you'll be exploring about customizing the ribbon, because that's something that's very useful in your workflow. And also we talked about content browser. So let's just take a look again at customization. I just want to highlight the other things that you can still customize aside from the ribbon. So we have the menus, we have the toolbars. One of the things would be the quad. So if you have been using BricsCAD for some time already, you'd be familiar with the quad, which is one of the tools or smart tools that BricsCAD has in order to make your tools be at the tip of your fingertips, easier for you to reach for them. So this quad itself is also customizable, and you can find all the settings and tools over here. You can keep on adding specific tools, just similar to how we did in the ribbon. So let's say under BIM, you want to attach certain commands. It's something that you can do here. Or you also don't want specific commands. It's also something that you can delete. So I hope that this was a bit more insightful in terms of how you can customize your ribbon, your settings, on top of migrating your already prepared assets from your previous CAD software or workspace. So I hope you test it out on your own. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Of course, you can always email us. And even after the session, that's totally fine. We'll be happy to answer and assist where we can in terms of helping you to customize, be a bit more productive in your workflow. Thank you, everyone. And that's the session for today. See you in the next Getting Started series, session 4. That will be next week. Thank you.